Men, they're always trying to impress me.
Hey, Jack!
Chyna, the ninth wonder of the world, was unlike anyone wrestling had ever seen. Towering at 6 feet and built with 200 pounds of pure muscle, she shattered expectations at a time when genuine female wrestlers were rare. But what if the wrestling world hadn't just been her arena of glory, but also the battleground of her deepest betrayals? From her explosive debut as a bodyguard for D-Generation X in 1997 to her heartbreaking departure in 2001, Chyna's journey was full of triumphs and tragedies. Yet behind the towering figure was a woman whose personal life was filled with untold sorrow and loneliness. Wrestling gave her purpose, but would it be enough to save her from the darkness? Born Joanie Laurer, Chyna's life was riddled with hardship from the start. Her father was an abusive drug addict and alcoholic, casting a shadow over her early years. As she grew into her teenage body, standing a striking 5'11", Chyna was different from her peers, not just in height, but in the struggles she carried. Have you ever felt out of place, longing for acceptance? That was Chyna's world. She found solace in the gym, building not just muscle, but a protective armor against a world that often rejected her. Bodybuilding came naturally to her, and while it wasn't yet clear what her future held, she knew she was destined for greatness. Chyna attended the University of Tampa, where she graduated with a degree in Spanish literature, becoming fluent in French and German as well. But even this intellectual accomplishment couldn't shield her from the darkness. She was sexually assaulted during her college years, an event that deepened her distrust of men and pushed her further into her isolation. What would she do next? Struggling to find her place, Chyna worked odd jobs, everything from cocktail waitressing to delivering singing telegrams, until one fateful night, she stumbled upon professional wrestling on TV. At that moment, everything changed. The bright lights, the roaring crowds. It was as if she had found her calling. In 1997, Chyna attended a WWE show in Massachusetts, where she crossed paths with two of the biggest names in wrestling, Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Triple H, impressed by her size and power, saw something in her immediately. And with that, a new path opened up for her. Have you ever had a moment where your entire future seemed to hinge on one meeting? This was Chyna's. Triple H and Shawn Michaels lobbied Vince McMahon to bring Chyna on as their on-screen bodyguard, forming the iconic faction D-Generation X. It wasn't easy. Vince wasn't convinced the fans would accept a woman in such a role. But when Chyna finally got the call, her life changed overnight. Her time in the WWE wasn't without controversy. Chyna made history, becoming the first woman to compete regularly against male wrestlers, and even winning the prestigious Intercontinental Championship. But as her career soared, her personal life crumbled. She began a relationship with Triple H, and for a while everything seemed perfect. But wrestling, like life, is full of twists. Triple H's budding romance with Stephanie McMahon would be the beginning of the end for Chyna. Imagine discovering that the person you love is seeing someone else, someone in your inner circle. It's a pain that cuts deep, and for Chyna, it was the ultimate betrayal. She found a love letter from Stephanie to Triple H, and her world came crashing down. Heartbroken and with her WWE career in jeopardy, she was left wondering what her next move would be. By 2001, Chyna's WWE contract expired, and despite holding the Women's Championship, there was no offer of renewal. Why? Many believe it was because of her messy breakup with Triple H, now dating the boss's daughter. Others suggest that Chyna's demands, including a $1 million contract, strained her relationship with Vince McMahon. Whatever the reason, Chyna was no longer a part of the WWE. She was erased from their history. The future looked uncertain for Chyna. She moved to California hoping to break into acting, but her efforts were largely unsuccessful. Have you ever chased a dream, only to find the door slammed shut at every turn? For Chyna, Hollywood wasn't the answer, and as her frustrations mounted, so did her battle with addiction. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, Chyna turned to reality TV and the adult film industry. Her substance abuse worsened, and her relationships became increasingly toxic. She found herself spiraling deeper into darkness. Despite moving to Japan for a fresh start in wrestling, Chyna couldn't escape her demons. Substance abuse followed her, and by the time she returned to the US, she was in a tailspin. Her once promising career had devolved into tabloid headlines and personal struggles. In 2016, Chyna was found dead in her apartment, the victim of an accidental overdose. The woman who once stood tall as an icon in the wrestling world was gone. A mix of alcohol, anxiety medications, and painkillers had claimed her life. It wasn't until 3 years later, in 2019, that Chyna was finally inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, posthumously recognized for the groundbreaking contributions she made to the sport. But for Joanie Laurer, it was too little, too late. Chyna's legacy as the ninth wonder of the world endures, but her story is one of triumph and heartbreak. She broke barriers, paving the way for female wrestlers to follow, but her personal struggles remind us that even the mightiest can fall.